What's up guys, Tommy Bowyer here from Movie Rewind, and today I'm going to be reviewing Casualty, A History of Violence. So without further ado, let's get into it. Casualty, A History of Violence premiered on the 30th of December 2023 and concluded after 12 episodes on the 16th of March 2024. Now, as I have said previously, John Sen, who is the executive producer of Casualty, decided about a year ago that instead of Casualty having its standard series, so for example Series 35, Series 36, Series 37, he would break these series down into individual box sets which would have certain narratives running through them. So obviously before A History of Violence we had Driving Force, before that we had Welcome to the War Zone. So this new style is something very new to Casualty, and at the moment at least it seems to be paying off. I really enjoyed A History of Violence. I thought it was a very well written series and I'm really looking forward to talking about it now. One little thing I will say is that this review is going to contain spoilers, so if you haven't watched A History of Violence, I'd give it a watch now because it is a cracking bit of television and highlights Casualty at its best. The main theme of this series is the increasing levels of violence within the NHS, and I think Casualty handled this really well. They've clearly put a lot of time and effort into the storylines for this series and it definitely pays off. I think it's great that they're shining a light on how much violence there is within the NHS now and how much staff are being put at physical risk. But they also touch on the fact how it's not just the physical risks, it also how it affects people's mental health. Because obviously if you work in the NHS, whether you're a doctor, nurse or paramedic, if you are a victim of an assault or you witness an assault, then obviously that's going to have an impact on your mental health. And I think Casualty have done a great job of highlighting that. For me, A History of Violence is the first of these box set series that I can say was flawless. I think it worked really well to have this particular concept of violence within the NHS woven throughout all 12 episodes. I think it was a great idea. It really does give the series some focus, which we haven't seen in quite a few years in Casualty. And I just think it paid off really well. So in terms of the theme of this series, the idea of violence in the NHS, I think it worked really well. And there were some very hard to watch moments in this series, but it's real. This is real life. This is the reality that NHS staff have to face, especially since COVID, when I think all key worker professions have had to see an increase in the number of people who are violent towards them. Out of all the characters in this series, for me, Stevie Nash, she was the standout. Now, I have made it, very clear that when Stevie first arrived in 2021, I weren't a massive fan, but you know what? She is now quite possibly one of my favourite characters, and A History of Violence is definitely when I started thinking that. First of all, Eleanor Lawless, never let her go, Casualty. She's one of the best actors you have at the moment, and she gives some very scene-stealing performances in this series, and I love Stevie's storyline. It starts off from that first episode where she sees Ryan get assaulted and she takes responsibility for that. She feels like it's her fault, and then she starts to become more paranoid. She wants to protect staff at all costs, and then we learn more about her backstory, how she grew up during the Troubles in Northern Ireland and how this impacted her life, and how seeing violence in the NHS brings back memories of that PTSD which she's suppressed for so long. So Stevie's storyline throughout these 12 episodes is amazing. I just found her such a great character, really relatable. You clearly care about her a lot because you want her to get better, and actually by the end of the series it does end on a positive note because she's able to save Charlie's life, which really was a great circle. It was a great circle. That's how you do a character arc. We saw Stevie at her most vulnerable when this series started off, and by the end of the series we see that she's got a renewed confidence again, which was great to see. Another character which shined through in this series was Rash. Now, Rash's storyline with his father, who was suffering from dementia, had been going on for a few months before this series, but it really picks up in this series. I think it's so hard hitting when you have scenes with Rash and his dad, because obviously his dad is forgetting his life, and it's tragic to see how he even seems to forget Rash at points, and Rash is really struggling with that. But then this series takes a massive plot twist because Ashok is killed off. Rita is looking after him, he escapes the house and gets run over by a bus. And those scenes in Resus when Rash breaks down over his dad's death, wow. Neat Mohan's acting was incredible during those scenes. I honestly started tearing up. They were that emotional. It was that raw. And that is something I have to say about A History of Violence. The acting from all of the main cast has been phenomenal. Not that it's usually bad. I usually think the acting in Casualty is very good. But this series, my God, everyone has been on their A game, and it definitely shows in the quality of the programme. One aspect of this series that I think could have been handled better is Max and Jodie's storyline. Now, obviously, Max and Jodie, father and daughter, they're never going to see eye to eye. And as this series progressed, obviously, Max's kidney failure was getting worse, and he was pushing everyone away. But in the end, he eventually allows Jodie to donate a kidney to him. So it's like after she does that, he then decides he's going to go off to a war-torn country and be a volunteer, and he just leaves. You know, Jodie says, you got to choose me or this job opportunity, and he just leaves. And I don't know why, I just feel this was a massive letdown, because ever since Max arrived, he's been obsessed with Jodie. He wants to reconnect with his daughter, but then all of a sudden he's off as soon as he's better. I just feel like the show could have given Max a better exit. So obviously I think that the plan was that Nigel Harman would stay on for more than a year, because that seems to be what they were going for. But obviously Harman decided he wanted to depart after just a year. So I feel like his exit was a bit rushed, which is a shame, because I really did like the rapport they built up between Max and Jodie. So it just felt like the ending of that particular storyline was a letdown, I have to say. Paramedic Ian also gets into a lot of trouble in this series. So obviously I would love to see him reconcile with Faith, who has a very strong series herself, considering that she was a drug addict not too long ago. To see her rebuild herself and become professional and competent again was great to see. But Ian has his own problems with Faith's daughter, Natalia, who clearly develops a bit of a crush on him and tries to kiss him at points. Ian, his heart is in the right place. Ian's always trying to do the right thing, but he just digs himself into a hole. He should have just told Faith from the off that Natalia had a crush on him. And I'm interested to see where this storyline goes, because it was kind of left on a bit of a cliffhanger. You know, Faith made it clear she didn't want anything to do with Ian and he should stay away from her family. But obviously, I don't think Ian's going to do that. If Ian's the kind of person I think he is, I think he wants to reconnect with Faith. So I'm really interested to see where that particular storyline is going to go. In terms of new characters which we had arrived, I think they all have potential. Ngozi, the new staff nurse, I like her. She has a good rapport with Cam, and I think it's an interesting storyline showing how she's saving up money for her daughter back home. But I just don't think we've seen enough of her yet. I think that character has potential. We just need to see a bit more of her. Although saying that, Siobhan, the new clinical nurse manager, she impressed me from day one. Now look, I know Melaine Hill as an actor. I used to watch Waterloo Road, so I know that she can act. But my God, she made such a great impression. And as Charlie has now left the series, I think Siobhan could definitely take over. She comes across as quite a mother hen. You know, she's firm but fair, and she wants to make sure that all the nurses are protected, but also doing their jobs properly. So I really like Siobhan. I think that she has a lot to offer the department in the future. And now to the characters which departed in this series. For the majority of them, they had decent exits. I mean, Ryan's exit was very shocking. He got beaten up by a patient, and then he decided that he couldn't go back to work. You know, he couldn't go through that again. His PTSD was too much. And I felt like that was a great exit, because it shows how some nurses, you know, they can't come back. You know, the system fails them. They've been let down. And as Ryan was assaulted quite severely, I think it made sense that he departed. Sah departs. I really liked Sah as a character. I thought they were great. In terms of Sah's exit, it's a bit low-key. I wish they had made up with Teddy. But you know what? You can't have everything you want. But for the most part, I enjoyed Sah's exit. And Junior Dr. Paige, her exit was all right. Once again, much like Sah's, it was low-key. I feel like her and Teddy never really worked. I was never a massive fan of that pairing. I do think that Teddy and Jodie work a lot better, so I'm not that disappointed that Paige and Teddy broke up. But, you know, Paige's exit, it was a bit low-key, but it was decent enough, I think. And the last thing I want to discuss about A History of Violence is the final two-part story, which of course marked the departure of original character Charlie Fairhead after an impressive 37 years on screen. And honestly, this two-parter was Casualty at its best. I don't think it could have been any better, in all honesty. The first part did everything right. We saw Charlie be a great nurse, and that cliffhanger when he is stabbed obviously had viewers on the edge of their seat. I remember seeing loads of comments saying, no, you can't kill off Charlie, OMG, I can't wait for next week. And then we got his final episode, and it was a relief to see him survive. But I really liked how they handled his departure. I love how it went back to the 80s, and the actor who portrayed a young Charlie, he was great. I mean, my mum for a second was like, oh, they're showing old footage of Charlie, and it's like, no, that's a different actor. And she was like, wow, you really can't tell. He looks that similar, and he acts like him in terms of his mannerisms. So that's when you know you've got good casting. But I really enjoy how he departs. He retires. You know, he's given his time to the NHS, and now he wants to do whatever the hell he wants. I love that Zoe came back. I thought it was great to see her again. I think it was great that Josh came back. If any character was going to see Charlie off, it would be Josh, because those two are best friends and they worked together for so long. I love how the hospital gave him a yellow beetle as a retirement present. That's just fantastic. Plus, a really underrated aspect of this two-parter was the relationship between Stevie and Charlie. I didn't realise how much I enjoyed that relationship, especially when we discovered that Charlie actually looked after Stevie during one of the bombings back in the 80s, and is probably the reason that Stevie was inspired to go into medicine. So I thought it was great. That final scene when Stevie's like, I'm not ready for you to leave this department yet, that had me tearing up. It's such an emotional scene. And that scene when Charlie goes out and is celebrated by all the staff, you can tell that isn't just the staff saying goodbye to Charlie. That is the Casualty team saying goodbye to Derek Thompson. I think it was great that they brought in Pete Salt, who was the show's medical advisor, who was actually the inspiration for Charlie himself. I think that was a nice little touch, which a lot of fans would get. I can't stress enough, his departure was done so well. It was the perfect send-off for such an iconic character. So in conclusion, A History of Violence really is Casualty at its best. It's got well-written storylines, amazing acting, and thrilling stunts. And obviously, A History of Violence will go down in history as the final series to star Charlie Fairhead on a permanent basis. I do hope that Charlie returns for the 40th anniversary, just for a little cameo, you know, that would be nice. But Casualty is back on its A game at the moment. I really enjoyed A History of Violence, and I can't wait for the next series. So thanks for watching, guys. I really do hope that you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe in order to receive great and maybe even improved quality content in the future, and I will see you in another one. See ya!